Wednesday night edition of the Anaheim Calling podcast. We're back here a little later than usual, not directly after the Ducks winning a very exciting game 7-4 against the Winnipeg Jets. We're recording this the day after, but thanks to the fact that this is a little later than usual, we actually have more to talk about. Not that Jake and I are ever in need of more things to talk about. I don't think that's not something that we really suffer from, is a lack of things to say.
Yeah.
But here we are with more ammo.
Yeah, I'm happy that there's definitely more hockey to talk about, seeing as LAFC lost yesterday. Not fun. Not as excited.
And that is a record, 43 seconds into the podcast, and we've got an LAFC mention.
I'm getting it out of the way. I'm going to say a very sad congratulations to George and his Seattle Sounders.
Okay, well, do you also want to let's just get all of our other sports out of the way. Do you want to congratulate the Washington Nationals?
Congratulations to Howie Kendrick. Congratulations to Howie Kendrick.
To the Washington Nationals winning the World Series. So, getting all of that poison out of our system now, let's get into the
poison.
Hockey.
Wow.
Getting all that poison out of our systems. We've got some news to talk about, and I kind of want to just jump right into it. So, a couple podcasts ago, we were discussing the ramifications of an injury to Josh Manson, to Ondrej Kase, and how that may potentially affect the Ducks. And as it turns out, we don't necessarily have our answer in terms of how it will look long term, but we have our answer in terms of how long they will be without these players. It was announced today by General Manager Bob Murray of the Ducks. Josh Manson out 5 to 10 weeks with an MCL sprain. So MCL, that's typically the ligament in the knee that is a little easier on the healing side. So there's some positive to be gleaned there. But 5 to 10 weeks. So, I guess that an optimistic expectation would be that he comes back maybe early December at this point. And a pessimistic view would be he's back by late January, early February.
Yep.
So this is a pretty critical stretch of the season now that the Ducks are just going to be without a key component of not just their top defense pairing, but also their entire team.
Yeah.
So your reaction?
Well, I mean, it hurts. I don't think there's any other way to put it. I mean, outside of the actual injury, it hurts as a Ducks fan, simply because he's been really, for all the gripes that there are about Josh Manson and his game regressing this year, and he's not being as good as he's been in the past, he's still been a top pairing defenseman, and him and Lindholm still have that chemistry together. And when you lose a guy like that, it's going to hurt the team long term. And this is not what you want to see. I mean, 5 to 10 months, or 5 to 10 weeks, not 5 to 10 months, 5 to 10 weeks.
That would be bad.
Yes, that would be really bad. Is a significant amount of time. I mean, I kind of took a guess that he may be done for 2019, and it seems like that is most likely the case, having seen this. So this is going to be a really critical stretch for the Ducks team without Josh Manson to find out what they can do. Who do they pair Hampus Lindholm with? Because we saw last year that the Ducks really, under Randy Carlyle, did not want to have Manson and Lindholm together. They had Lindholm with a bunch of different partners before reuniting them for one game and then breaking them up again until Bob Murray got behind the bench. And so they were put back together this season, and it was same old for them, basically. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how they kind of combat Lindholm not having Manson. Not saying that Lindholm's worse off without Manson, but their numbers are better together than away from each other. So who do you pair with Hampus Lindholm? What's going to work? Is Erik Gudbranson, who seems like the person that they want to put with Hampus Lindholm, is he going to be able to fill that role? Is he going to be able to do what Josh Manson does? And quite honestly, I'm very doubtful at that being the case, because we've talked about this at length. Josh Manson, yes, he plays a physical game. Yes, some people may draw the comparison there with Erik Gudbranson and Josh Manson because of that. But the difference between them is Erik Gudbranson does not have a great first pass.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a great breakout pass. And actually, I believe it was Shane O'Brien on one of the point breakaways had mentioned that it's just a very bad first pass. And that was from what he's seen, I think, when he played with him. That's
quite the endorsement.
Yeah. And so he's big and physical and does all that type of stuff, but his first pass in the breakout of the zone is not great. He's a decent skater, but one of the things that Manson does so well is that 5-foot pass, is that first pass out of the zone to break it out. And it's going to be greatly missed, because I've said this a couple times with Manson that he's at his best when he's not playing super physical. Going out of his way to play physical is a better way to put it. When he's making those 5-foot passes, working on that breakout, getting the puck out quick, and I'm just doubtful that Goodbranson can fill that role. So it's concerning. I think at the end of the day, after having said all that, it's very concerning that Manson's out for 5 to 10 months, or I said it again, 5 to 10 weeks. And yeah, it's going to be a tough stretch for this team.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no sugarcoating it. Losing Josh Manson for a significant period of time. We initially predicted on the pod 2 to 6 weeks. So I think we probably were a little overly optimistic, but there's no sugarcoating it. Losing Josh Manson for a significant period of time for this team in particular makes them significantly worse in the short term.
Yes.
There's no getting around that. Unfortunately, that's just the reality here. And really, if you talk about similarities between Erik Goodbranson and Josh Manson, to me, the similarities are pretty much the last 4 letters of their last name, and that's about it. There's the first pass is not nearly as good with Goodbranson. The physicality is there, but physicality is just kind of a means to an end. And if that means doesn't ultimately get you what you want, which is puck possession, puck separation, then it's not really useful. Now, I will say though that with Erik Goodbranson, I think he's looked okay with the puck on his stick in the games that he's played with the Ducks. I actually don't find that to be the big issue with his game. I think that he's just really slow. I think that's not slow in the sense that he can't, skate fast up and down the rink, that he's a speedster. It's just slow in the sense that he's not very mobile laterally. You've seen guys already beat him off the rush pretty cleanly, just walking him, so to speak, just skating right around him, and that's, I think, the biggest hole in his game. I actually, just watching him play, it almost feels like he's worked at his first pass because the way that he holds his stick, the way that he seems a lot more conscious of his passes, he's very methodical. I actually don't find that to be necessarily the glaring weakness. Now, of course, this is all based off of a small sample.
3 games.
Yeah, well, 4 games now. Or 3 games. Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
But it's interesting because we talk about, well, who's going to play with Lindholm? And we actually don't know yet when Lindholm will be back. Hampus Lindholm has missed the last 2 games with the Ducks. He was part of this injury report today, listed as day-to-day with a lower body injury. So that's not nearly as concerning, but missing both Josh Manson and Hampus Lindholm, every game that happens for the Ducks, they're just at a competitive disadvantage. Now, that didn't hold true against Winnipeg, thankfully, because Winnipeg's blue line is just as bad right now, I would say.
They were icing the player the Ducks signed to put in the AHL.
The sleeper agent.
Yeah.
Lucas Spisa, who injured Patrick Laine.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so Hampus Lindholm is out day-to-day with the lower body injury. I guess that's just something that we'll have to monitor.
Supposedly, and this was before the game against the Jets, he had skated in the full morning skate alongside Erik Goodbranson. Dallas Eakins did say that he wasn't playing against the Jets, but they were hopeful he could play on Friday against the Canucks. So that is still a possibility that he's going to be back in the lineup on Friday, or I guess if he's not in on Friday, potentially Sunday.
Yeah, and finally, the last piece of news here from this injury update, Ondrej Kase, day-to-day with a jaw injury. So we initially had thought that he could very well be concussed after sustaining a pretty heavy hit from Roope Hintz at the middle of the ice in the Dallas game, and it looked like he hit his head on the ice, but it turns out that it's his jaw that got the worst of it. From the report, he's not experiencing any concussion symptoms. Yeah. So that's huge for the Ducks.
Per Eric Stevens, I guess Kase has a jaw issue, but it's doing much better. I guess he passed his concussion test the day after the Roope Hintz test. So we'll go to...
Which isn't... Yeah. Well, sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
I'm just finishing up the tweet. He said, we'll do protocols again tomorrow, and they'll determine if he's ready to get back on the ice after that. Looks great. He's in a good mood. So just because he passed the test on that day doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't fully have a concussion, but it's a good sign that he doesn't.
It's hopefully a good... I mean, this is where my knowledge of concussions kind of is the outer limits, but from what we know, concussions don't always manifest themselves right away. They can take a little time to creep up, but I would assume with my limited knowledge that if they're not readily apparent right away, that hopefully that's a good sign moving forward in terms of the severity.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see. But
Yep.
I would say that all in all, this injury report for the Ducks, the fact that Kase, there's no reports yet of him with any type of head trauma, and that Lindholm should be back soon. Josh Manson's going to miss some time. That's a big blow. But overall, I suppose it could have been worse. I mean, I don't know.
I guess
what more you could add to it.
Although
but this is tough.
I guess one player being out 5-10 weeks, I don't know if I can say that could have been worse because that's pretty bad.
Well, the only way this could have been worse is if Ondrej Kase had actually been concussed, which I guess is still a possibility.
Yes. So we'll see. Overall, it's manageable, but it's going back to kind of what I was saying with on Manson. It's going to be a tough stretch here, and it's really going to test kind of how the Ducks are. If, as a lot of people have kind of been talking about, if they're a sneaky playoff team, this is going to be the real test of that. This is a real test of that. And essentially, after those 5 to 10 weeks, we'll have a good idea of whether or not they're actually in that conversation, because this is, I mean, people think, and I know I say it's early to judge a team, but the points that happen now count as much as the points that happen or the games and the points in March. So this next 5 to 10 weeks could be critical to how the Ducks do at the end of the season.
They're going to have to survive.
Yes.
And if we're judging the last couple games here, it's really hard to say what that's going to look like, because the way this team has been playing has been really erratic.
Although I think the big thing on those last 2 games is they didn't have Lindholm in those.
Yeah, they didn't. And so once Lindholm comes back, I don't want to say they're going to be fine, because losing Manson is such a huge blow. But as long as you have Hampus Lindholm on that top pairing, that can cover a lot of problems. But looking at the Ducks blue line and the one that they iced last game against Winnipeg, Michael Dalzotto with Cam Fowler on the first pairing, Josh Mahura with Eric Goodbranson on the second pairing, and then the ever reliable, ever steady, I don't know about that last part, reliably together, Larson and Holzer pairing.
Yeah.
So this brings me to the next item that I think we should discuss, is that Brendan Guhle was sent down to the AHL on a conditioning stint. That's what Dallas Eakins has been saying. And Josh Mahura getting a call-up, a chance to prove himself, certainly did that against Winnipeg. I'm sure you've seen it by now, but he had 3 assists. But what's interesting about this to me, and I want your opinion on this, is that Brendan Guhle started off the season with a lot of promise, was playing top 4 minutes next to Cam Fowler, was kind of delivering on that promise that we saw at the end of last season when he was traded over from Buffalo. Has had some injury troubles, has not been a regular in the lineup, has almost been 1 game in, 1 game out type of deal. And he's not being left off for health reasons. He's being sent, well, I guess health does play a factor, but he's just being sent down basically to get his legs underneath him and to give Josh Mahura a shot. So even with the health considerations, my own opinion is I did not expect Mahura to almost be on equal footing with Brendan Guhle in the pecking order. That's what this kind of feels like.
Yeah, it definitely caught me off guard. I'm not going to lie there that Brendan Guhle got sent down, because I did not expect that to really happen at all this season. And so I'm trying to find his numbers really quickly on the season. So he's at exactly a 50% Corsi for percentage, so as many shots for as against.
Guhle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I not say Guhle?
Well, you didn't, but it wouldn't make sense for you to be talking about Mahura because we don't have numbers on him.
Yeah, exactly. So on Brendan Guhle, though, it's caught me off guard because his numbers haven't been bad, and so I'm just strictly talking about him getting sent down and the conditioning stint. I can't really say how Mahura has looked in the minors. I haven't really watched any of the goals games.
Well, the goals have also barely played.
Yes, and so it's one of those things that it's not technically a conditioning stint either for Guhle, because that would require him not to be waiver eligible, I believe, or waiver.
Yeah, exempt. I use the term conditioning kind of loosely, but yeah, that's not the official reasoning. He just got sent down.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just trying to switch things up, wanting to get Brendan Guhle some bigger minutes, I guess, even though he's been playing big minutes, maybe a less high pressure situation. I don't really know. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, that's the thing. That's why when people are saying, oh, well, he's just getting sent down to, I mean, I'm going to read the Eakins quote because I find it fascinating. Let's see where I can pull it up here. But essentially, what he's talking about, okay, this is what he said. So when he was asked about Guhle and being sent down, he said, "I take responsibility for that." And this is from the Eric Stevens article in The Athletic. Aiken said, "I'm a massive believer in these young guys. If you've been out of the lineup for a while, or if you've been hurt, you should go get your feet underneath you. This is a hard league on young players. We had in place and planned for Guhle, and so that's his nickname, and then we decided to put him in the lineup. He gets in the lineup that first night. Josh leaves the game early. He's under a tremendous amount of pressure. I just thought it was best for him to go get his feet underneath him because Guhle was really playing. He was really coming there through. I think it was games 3 or 4. His injury sent him back a little bit. I think he'll get back to it very, very quick. That was more of a mindset. Josh had some good games up here last year and played well this past weekend. And then he said Murph was at the games, referring to Bob Murray. It was an easy switch, and I think switches are going to be really beneficial to both players. I don't know what to make of that statement. There's a lot of window dressing in there.
Yes.
And a close reading of this statement, which I don't think was calculatingly spoken. But there's nothing in there that really indicates this is about health or that he's just recovering from an injury. This just kind of sounds like they're not satisfied with Guhle's play entirely, because he was playing, like Dallas Aikens even acknowledges, he was playing big minutes, playing in a big role. To me, and this is my own theory, is that he was, and I actually think this is true, and I'm not saying that Aikens is wrong. I actually think he's right that Brendan Guhle was thriving because he was in a very specific role.
Yeah.
He was playing in a second pairing that was sheltered from those heavy minutes behind Josh Manson and Hampus Lindholm. Remove Lindholm, remove Manson from the lineup, and all of a sudden you're feeding Guhle to the Wolves, and the organization doesn't seem to be willing to find out right now whether he can handle that.
Yeah,
that just
which is interesting to me.
The thing is that's kind of an exclusivity fallacy, because just because he was working in that role and now that those conditions are removed, it doesn't mean that you can, for example, put him in like a third pairing or something like that. Like, it doesn't mean he has to go down to the AHL.
Yeah,
it seems a little odd.
It seems odd that they couldn't put him with Eric Goodbranson.
Or Eric Branson, or literally anyone that's not in the AHL. It's just odd.
Well, I wonder how much of it is Mahura playing well in the last couple games. Like I said, that could possibly be it, and they want to give him a call up to see. And granted, Mahura, if you ignore the 5-on-5 numbers and looking at game flow, he had a really good game. I mean, he had 3 assists. But it is interesting because you look at it. Has Larson been better than Guhle has been this season?
Well, that's the thing, is there's like this hierarchy of issues that I don't really understand. Why can't Larson be the one to step up? Why can't Guhle be anywhere but where he was, right? There's all this stuff that just doesn't totally add up. And I don't think that their comments have really done anything to enlighten us on that. No. I mean, they have. I shouldn't say that. They have. There's clearly a level of something that they're not either satisfied with or that doesn't fit their plan. And their plan seems to be to develop him kind of nice and slow.
We forget. We do forget that Brendan Guhle is young.
He's 22.
He's 22.
He's not so young though.
No,
he's not like 19.
But it's almost as if we kind of perceive Josh Mahura to be this young kid, and Brendan Guhle, on the other hand, to be this.
What's Mahura? He's Steele's age.
Yeah, and Brendan Guhle, I believe, is 1 year older than them. So Josh Mahura was born in May 1998, so he's 21. I believe Brendan Guhle is
21.
Is Brendan Guhle 21? No,
Mahura is 21 and Guhle's 22.
Yeah, so there's only a 1 year difference. So it's odd.
I just find it odd. That's all.
Yeah.
We don't have to crack the case here, but I do think my own theory is that I think that there's probably about 80% of what Aikens is saying is actually what's going on, and I think there's a 20% that he's just not ready physically right now. I think that this trend of him not being able to stay healthy goes back to last year, and I think that there is probably an element of him actually wanting to, or of them wanting to get his legs underneath them. I think that that's more in play than they're letting on. And I'm not saying, I'm not inherently doubting what they're saying, because it's not like they're giving me a reason to not trust them. It's just, if you look at the set of facts, if you look at what's going on here, it just doesn't add up totally what they're saying. Anyway, after all this investigative journalism, we're going to take our first break. On the other side, we're going to talk about the hockey game. So we'll talk to you right after the break. Okay, back from the first period. So can we call that the first period? First intermission.
Are we doing that? Yeah, there we go. That's better way to put it.
Yeah, after the first intermission, let's get into this game. Any final thoughts, injuries, Mahura, anything like that?
I think I'm curious to see how Mahura does. I'm curious to see, honestly, what they're going to do once Lindholm comes back. Where's Mahura going to slot in? Is he going to be cut out of the lineup because of it? Are they going to want to keep Fowler and Del Zotto together because that was a pairing used last season? There's a lot of questions, honestly, about what they're going to be doing.
The blue line blues is in full effect right now in Anaheim. What's interesting to me is that they seem really married to certain types of solutions. Like Del Zotto is a mainstay in the top four in light of these injuries. And I understand that Larson and Holzer have shown, some chemistry, but Jacob Larson at this point in his career, couldn't they? I mean, I know he's only 22. It feels like he's 25. Wouldn't they want to see maybe what he can do just a little bit more in the top four, maybe? Yeah. I think we saw Larson and Fowler together last year. So anyway, let's get into this game though. So the Ducks going into the game against Winnipeg, kind of a ghost ship of a lineup in terms of the blue line, like we mentioned already. Up front, though, the forward lines remaining pretty much the same. We saw Richie, Getzlaf, Comtois remain together, and then the Rico and the Swedes line. Is that the official nickname now?
Do we have to use that? Can we come up with something better?
Well, I think you're asking that because you want to.
Well, although I will say, our good buddy Dan Elder did text me that they should be called the Napoleon Dynamite line, and then followed that up with sending me a Photoshop picture of Adam Henrique's Uncle Rico and Silverberg and Raquel as Napoleon, and I guess I forgot the brother's name in the movie. Anyone in the Twitch chat, please let me know. I am spacing so hard.
It's Jeb?
I don't know.
Is it Jeb?
I don't know.
Now
that's a movie I don't have great memory. I don't have a great recollection of.
I remember watching it.
Kip. Rabbit Hobo tells us it's Kip. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Anyway, that was a dangerous rabbit hole. I'm glad we didn't jump in. Okay, let's get into the game. Recap. Not even 1 minute into the game, we were getting shades of the Vegas matchup on Sunday.
It looked
shades
rough.
of the Vegas matchup. It did not look pretty. Nikolai Ehlers, who, by the way, if you didn't know, very good. Comes in off the rush. The Ducks just get beaten clean. Jacob Larson looks terrible. Corbinian Holzer's doing the starfish on the ice. Not a whole lot going on well in transition here. Ehlers just gets it off a nice quick up through the neutral zone and snipes it home past John Gibson, who has not had the best run of hockey lately.
Yeah.
Is that starting to be fair?
I think that's a decent conclusion, although later in this game, he certainly stepped it up and really made some awesome and amazing saves. But yeah, in this first period, and when we get to the second goal, it will be even worse. This is a goal that he probably wants back.
Yeah. Well, speaking of awesome and amazing, Cam Fowler setting a franchise record. Wires home a wrister to tie the game at 1. His 61st NHL goal, which makes him the top scoring defenseman in Anaheim Ducks history, who, by the way, have had the likes of defensemen like Scott Niedermayer, Chris Pronger, Kevin Bieksa, Clayton Stoner. So this is a very impressive list, and Cam Fowler has made it to the top after all these years. A really pretty goal, though, a real nice transition play. He kind of made it all happen. I mean, started the rush, as he's often done, but has done more so this year, starting the rush on the back end, leading into the offensive zone, joins the rush as the trailer, gets a nice feed from Silverberg, and just wires it past Connor Hellebuck, who also might not be all that good.
Yeah, Lewis is actually asking in our Twitch chat that he thought Connor Hellebuck was good because I said that Connor Hellebuck is bad, and then asked, is he not good anymore? I'm pretty sure I made.
Lewis, that's a fair assumption. If whatever Jake says, just go against it. You have about a coin flip odd. So,
well, I'm pretty sure last year on the podcast I said that
you've been anti-Hellebuck for a long time.
I've been very anti-Hellebuck. So, yeah, exactly. And he did not look good. He had one good year, got paid from it.
Yeah. Hey, more power to him.
Oh, more power to him for getting paid, but people
get paid.
Goalies are voodoo. People buy into 1 year samples so hard. Give me multiple years.
Actually, I'm going to take it all back as I look at the fantastic daily goalie charts over at chartinghockey.ca.
Wow. Are you about to burn me?
Connor Hellebuck is third in the NHL in goals saved above expectation.
Damn it.
This is a look at how goaltenders are performing relative to the shot quality they face. So not only is he near the top in terms of goals saved above expectation, but he's also doing it on the highest shot volume. So he's actually been very, very, very good this season. Sorry, Jake. Although I was agreeing with you there, and then I looked at the numbers, so I cheated a little bit.
Well, sample size. Let's go with that.
Hellebuck is actually doubling John Gibson's GSAX. So there you go.
Gibson's had a rough week. Let's go with that.
Yeah, and never was that more apparent than on the second goal of the night for Winnipeg. John Gibson goes behind his net to corral the puck, just kind of waits an extra split second, doesn't seem to be all that aware of a forechecker that's coming in to pressure Jacob Larson, plays it over to Larson, who doesn't really corral it. I mean, you could argue that Larson's just as much to blame here, but he loses it right away. Blake Wheeler jumps on it, and Wheeler shoots the puck into a vacant net, making it 2-1 Winnipeg. This helter-skelter start really had me thinking that this game was going to go the way of Vegas. It didn't, but that was a rough start.
It was very, very rough to start. I mean, you look at shot attempts in the very beginning. I mean, it's basically as if the Ducks weren't playing in the very beginning. They were constantly getting stuck in their zone, constantly getting hemmed in their zone. And yes, it was very concerning. Although we did, spacing for a really hot second that we had forgotten to talk about the Fowler goal, but we definitely did and mentioned that was his record-breaking goal, as you had said.
Yeah. And, there was kind of this narrative about John Gibson early in the season about having improved his puck moving ability. Where do we stand on that today?
I think for the most part he's actually improved. I think that there's gonna obviously, when a guy comes out and plays the puck, there's gonna be one or two bad plays that result in goals against. It's just how it works. It's what happens, and then that's gonna stand out in your head when you think about him and basically say, no, never go out and play the puck because that one singular play stands out. I think for the most part, he's been really good actually at handling the puck this year. And I think he should continue to do it because he's led to breakouts of the zone. He's really kept the puck kind of in a good spot for his defenseman. So, yes, that was a bad play of the puck. I also think Jacob Larson didn't do the best with the puck that was fed to him. He probably should have controlled it there, which would have kept the goal from going in. So, yeah, it's not the best play from Gibson ever. I still think he should go out and play the puck because it helps control the game.
Yeah, no, I mean you can't just say he shouldn't do it off one play. Ryan Getzlaf though, and moving over to the second period now, a lot of stuff happened in the second period. Everything happened in the second period. You could argue.
Yes, stuff, lots of stuff.
One thing that I did not expect though, Max Comtois coming in to take the draw after Ryan Getzlaf getting kicked out. And Ryan Getzlaf moving back behind Comtois in the faceoff circle as a shooter, kind of in that Ovechkin spot, but on the right side. Comtois wins it back cleanly to Getzlaf, who just wires it home. I mean, this is the best case scenario for the set play crowd who think that faceoffs are super important. There you go. I mean, they win it clean, goes right back to Getzlaf, and he shoots it right into the net. Yep. You can't ask for anything more than that, can you?
This is the one time that you can look at a faceoff and say, yep, that faceoff impacted the play.
I mean, faceoffs would be very, very important if that could happen every single time.
If that happened,
or even like 10% of the time.
If that happened once every 10 games.
Yeah, like we don't need to do this again.
We don't. We've done it. We've done it 4 or 5 times on this show. But
it's brutal.
I mean, it's a good win by the Comtois and a great finish by Getzlaf, and really caught Hellebuck sleeping there.
Yeah, absolutely. The avalanche of goals would continue. A nice play by Josh Mahura at the Jets' blue line to maintain control of the puck, kind of beats an oncoming defender. Jakob Silverberg then controls it, just kind of wires it towards the net, and Adam Henrique tips it home, making it 3-2 Anaheim at that point. So after a shaky start, I think it's fair to call it a shaky start. The Ducks have the lead here just about halfway through the hockey game. Now, that lead would be very tenuous, though, as Nikolai Ehlers would get his second of the night, just a failed clearing attempt by the Ducks. Not really able to maintain possession, leaving the zone. And then, of course, wouldn't you know it, it's our ever-reliable culprits, Corbinian Holzer and Jacob Larson, not able to clear out the front of the net, and Ehlers is able to just bang home the rebound. So that would make it 3-3 halfway through the game. At this point, how can you feel as a Ducks fan at this juncture of the game?
Ooh.
Are you feeling good? Are you terrified? A mixture of the two? What's going through your mind here?
I think all the emotions. All of
emotions.
No, I honestly, though, I've said this a bunch, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm happy because it's entertaining.
You're happy because it happened.
Well,
what's the old saying?
Yeah.
Don't cry because it happened.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Felix.
I don't know.
That is not what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is that it was a fun game, and yes, I've said this a bunch. It's a process this season.
It's a process.
All I want,
Jacob Larson and Corbinian Holzer. Process pairing.
All I want from the season is for it to be fun, for me to be entertained, for me not to be bored out of my mind at times watching hockey because Randy Carlyle is the coach of the team. So, at this point, yes, it was sketchy. Yes, it was shaky. Yes, it was back and forth. But there were chances for both sides. And both sides were scoring goals. I can't really complain that much. I mean, the game was 2-2 under halfway through the game.
Yeah. I mean, that's say no more. I think you just summed it all up pretty perfectly. But not even 2 minutes later.
The most important part.
Josh Mahura making his presence known in a big way. The Jets just kind of lob it out of their defensive zone. It goes out into the neutral zone. And what I found really interesting is that if you watch Mahura as he's tracking the puck coming down, he's already looking behind him. He's already looking up ice to make a play, immediately turns around, and in one motion sweeps it all the way up to Troy Terry, who I think was just getting on the ice at this point, catches the Winnipeg Jets. As Brian Hayward duly described it, a terrible line change. Troy Terry gets wide open for the breakaway, bursts through a crowd, shoots it past the right elbow, the right arm of Connor Hellebuck. I don't think this was really a clean 5-hole goal. I could be wrong about that.
It was not 5-hole. It was arm and body.
Yeah. It was kind of a weird goal, just looking at it, because Hellebuck goes into this weird half butterfly, but I'm way underselling it here. This was a really exciting goal. I mean, it's a stretch pass that leads to a breakaway. Terry scores, and that would give the Ducks the lead back. Again, not even halfway through the hockey game, 4-3. Just all around, like you said, you want to be entertained, and this is about as entertaining of a play as you can see in any given night in the National Hockey League. And Troy Terry, by the way, might be very good.
Hashtag Terry is very good.
He might be very good. It's only his second goal of the season.
He's looked so good. There were points later on in this game also where he was just generating chance after chance after chance. But it's nice to see the puck go in for him on a direct shot as compared to just a tip. I'm very excited to see kind of where this goes. The breakout pass from Mahura was absolutely perfect. You can't want a better pass than that, basically.
I mean, it's not the most difficult pass in the world, but you got to get it right. And also just
the distance travel. The distance to have to put that puck and get it there quick enough where a Jets player isn't able to react to it. And also with that distance, you have to hit Terry in stride where he's able to go into the zone with speed so a Jets player doesn't catch up to him and he's able to get in on a breakaway.
Well, to me, it's not so much the physical act of the pass as much in the execution as much as it is just the recognition, just the confidence to try to make that play. Because some guys, even seeing that option, they might find an excuse not to do it. But Josh Mahura went for it.
The other thing is, I'm not sure how long on the ice Mahura was at that point in time, but there's the potential for him to miss that pass, and then it's an icing, and then he's stuck in his own zone. And so it's risky in that sense because it could potentially lead to a goal against if you miss the stick. Then again, also Terry Prawley in that sense gets in there to break up the icing. But still, it's a really, really nice pass. It's a hard pass to make. I think it's much harder than I think you're giving it credit for. Not saying you're saying it's an easy pass to make, but he hit him perfectly. And so it's a great pass, great finish, great breakaway. Hashtag Terry's very good.
Now, speaking of very good, so at this point in the hockey game, right, it's 4-3 Anaheim. The crowd is going a little crazy, and you could say it's a party in the Honda Center, but it's not really, in my mind, a party until Derek Grant shows up. And that's exactly what happened here.
The elite first-line center?
With the elite first-line center makes his presence felt. He's like the guy who shows up to the party after it's all set up, after everything is provided, but he shows up with the 30-pack of beer, and that just cements it. Just confirms this party is good.
What type of beer? What type of beer would Derek Grant bring to a party?
That I will leave to our listeners to envision. But just imagine Derek Grant. Actually, no, this is the analogy. So the party's at a critical juncture, right? So the party's going well. The proper elements are in place.
Where's this going?
But Derek Grant, shows up with just not the best quality beer. Let's call it Coors Light, but just enough beer to really kickstart to cement what's been established.
This is up to the listeners, and they have to tweet at us with what type of beer Derek Grant would show up to the party with. So people in the Twitch chat.
There was nothing exceptional about this goal, just like I would imagine there would be nothing exceptional about the beer, although Derek Grant is a wealthy man. But it's a really simple play. Derek Grant just enters it into the offensive zone, dishes it off to none other than Nicolas Deslauriers. So maybe he's showing up to the party with Nicolas Deslauriers. I don't know. They're showing up together, just quality over quantity. Deslauriers just wires it on net, and it comes out to Derek Grant, who I don't even think really uses his hockey stick to score this goal. It just kind of goes off it is his stick, but it's not the blade. It goes in. He looks surprised as hell that the puck goes in. But at this point, the crowd's going crazy. Yeah. The camera cuts to the super fan with the painted face.
Ned.
Now it's a party. Now the beer's here.
Oh.
And that would pretty much be it. There was still some back and forth, but at the end of the day, Derek Grant made it happen. So that's what this all comes back to. That's what every good story comes back to.
We've gotten some Modelo. We've gotten a couple PBR references. We've gotten some people saying that he's definitely bringing a Bush beer. Stevie D and the Momorg at the same exact time that said he's a wine cooler type of guy. Definitely not beer.
Yeah, fill in the blank. I don't want to steer you in any one direction. I don't want to. That's too much responsibility.
I just like envisioning Derek Grant just kind of kicking down a door with his little toothless smile and just has a 30 rack of whatever beer on his shoulder, saying, "Boys, it's time to party."
Now, yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what happened there. Moving on though to the third period, last goal here before we jump into our second break. Make this quick. Brian Little enters the Ducks zone after creating a turnover in the neutral zone. Surprise, surprise. It's the fourth line that gets caught going up ice, and Brian Little brings it down, just fires a slap shot on net with absolutely no traffic. Don't even think it got deflected.
It got deflected.
It
deflected off the toe of, I believe it was Mahura's stick.
It was far enough out to where John Gibson had time to react to it, and it beats him very cleanly, and that would make it 5-4. Keeping it very interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you on that. Being yes, it's far enough out, but it catches the toe of the blade in a way that it knuckles. And yes, it's one
he
that
also
gives him...
goes down. I don't know. Even sometimes I don't understand why goaltenders go down in their butterfly when it's a shot from far out. If John Gibson just hadn't moved on this play, he would have made the save.
I just think it's a pretty difficult save, actually, at the end of the other ones were not great. I think this one actually is not as bad as a lot of people were thinking it was because it caught the toe of Mahura's stick and knuckled. And so you couldn't project where it was going because of that, the fact that puck was knuckling. It took a weird deflection, went a weird way. I think that's one that, yes, he'd like to be able to make that save. Yes, he probably can on a lot of occasions, but I'm not actually sure that one I would blame him for. The Ikaika Warrior 22 said the replay showed the puck changed angles about a foot with basically like a dip, and so it was weird, and it was a very weird shot. So that's one I'll give to Gibson.
Okay. Well, while you do that, we're going to go into our second break. And on the other side, we're going to finish up our recap and get into some listener questions. Okay, back from the second and final timeout. Let's finish up the recap here.
Are we in the third period now? Third period of the podcast?
I suppose.
Is that what we're calling this?
I don't want to get too pot committed to that because then that means we have to do longer podcasts. We have to do 2 breaks. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Make of that what you will. But yeah, the fourth line just keeps the party going. Derek Grant just kind of throws the puck up into an area, winning a battle along the wall right at the Ducks' blue line. Carter Rowney recognizes that, gains speed and space, and then just takes it all the way to the Jets' goal. No opposition, and just beats – this one actually beats Hellebuck through the 5-hole. That would make it 6-4 Anaheim. Or sorry, that would beat Laurent Brossoit, not Connor Hellebuck. That would make it 6-4, and that would do it. Carter Rowney would then score on an empty netter. Ducks win an entertaining game, no other way to put it, an entertaining game 7-4. And hey, they survive the first installment, you could say, of life without Josh Manson, because although Josh Manson has been out the last few games, this is the first, I would assume, the first game where they had a better idea for the diagnosis. So yeah, I guess that they passed this first test. What are your thoughts, though, kind of zooming out here and looking at the overall results?
Zooming out here, a couple things stick out to me. First off, yes, John Gibson, like we said, had a bit of a rough outing in the first period. I think the third period, he was really strong. I mean, this was a 1-goal game for a majority of that third period, and I believe Kyle Connor had 5 or 6 glorious chances in that third period to where he easily could have had a goal or at least a goal or two in that third, and Gibson made some insane saves at the end there to keep them in this game. So may not have been his prettiest outing because of the goals they let up, but he was big for them in the third period to keep it at a 1-goal game. I'm not one to really love because I believe that Frederik Andersen gets compared to Grant Fuhr a lot in this, that he makes the saves when it matters most, because I don't really subscribe to that theory actually being a thing. That there's times that
what?
You've never heard this?
Well, no, I know, but how? Wait, what does this pertain? Oh, okay, you're talking about Gibson making the clutch saves in this game.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
I just heard Grant Fuhr and Frederik Andersen. I'm like, whoa, where's this going?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the fact that Gibson in this game, yes, he allowed 4 goals, but when it was 5-4, he really came up with some massive saves to keep the Ducks in the lead and eventually win the game later on. So one of those where, yes, not the prettiest outing, but ended up getting the win, which was big, and he was big at the end of it all. The other thing is, so obviously, I think focusing on Josh Mahura is kind of an interesting topic, because he had 3 assists on the night, which from a pure impact on the game perspective is huge. He played a part in 3 goals for the Ducks, and that's 3 of those 7. The issue is he was kind of caved in when he was on the ice. He was on the ice for 10 shot attempts for and 16 shot attempts against. I'm trying to look. Expected goals for actually levels out, so not as bad as I was thinking, purely looking at shot attempts. It's closer to 50%, at 48% for Josh Mahura. But this is one of those where you look at the numbers at 5-on-5, and you also compare that with the impact in terms of assist, and there's not an exact complete lineup there between the two of them. I think Cam Fowler and Michael Lozado actually had a pretty good night on the whole. Both of them were in the positive, and both of them, I think, were probably the best defensive pair for the Ducks going forward. I mean, they were both in the 60s in terms of expected goals for percentage. So the only thing I do want to say on Josh Mahura is he was paired with Eric Goodbranson, who is not known as being the best defenseman in terms of being able to move the puck out of the zone, like I said earlier. So I think that needs to be considered when talking about Josh Mahura.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to separate out what he's doing versus, what the pairing, how the pairing is performing. So we'll just have to see. I mean, just kind of zooming out some thoughts here from my perspective. If you look at the kid line, this wasn't necessarily their most dynamic offensive game. I mean, Troy Terry did score, but kind of a little bit off of a broken play. That being said, though, I mean, still were positives in terms of expected goals, shot attempts. Not the highest of usage at 5-on-5, but that's I think a positive for the Ducks is I think that they're really trying to make the Richie Getzlaf Comtois line into a top six line, a true top six line. And it has looked like that at times the last few games. But as long as that Jones, Steele, Terry line, or Steele, Terry, and fill in the blank on the left side can continue to fill in, then the Ducks are going to be in good shape. One worrying trend, though, for me, this fourth line for the Ducks, I know that they scored twice tonight. I was about to
talk about that. They scored three times.
Or they scored three times. I mean, if you count the empty net.
Yeah.
But this is a theme now.
They're getting caved in.
I think we can go so far as to call it a trend.
Yeah.
They haven't really ever been good this season. And if you look at the Ducks' shot rates now on the year, again, using the trusty chartinghockey.ca, which I recommend that everyone take a look at if you haven't already, just for stats and really getting a good feel for the league. The Ducks are starting to settle in as one of the not so good teams in terms of expected goal rates, shot rates. They're in that bottom left quadrant, which you don't want to be in.
I want to add a bit of a qualifier to that because I was actually taking a look at it today and looking at some numbers and then also kind of tracing back to pre-Vegas game. So pre-losing Lindholm. That game was so bad that the Ducks were in the right-hand quadrant, the bottom right-hand quadrant of the chart. And that Vegas game made a significant hit on that because we're still in a relatively small sample size. So a single outlier of a game can really skew the results. So
they weren't really doing well beforehand either. Now they just happen to be worse, but yeah, they haven't really been a good 5-on-5 team this season. And so I think a big part of that is the fourth line is just consistently getting crushed when they're out there. And even if you're getting great minutes from Henrique, from Raquel, from Silverberg, and getting adequate minutes from your middle six forwards, if you're just putting a line out there that's just getting hammered each time, back to the beer analogy, but if you're putting them out there and they're just not going to even come close to holding serve, that's a problem for the Ducks. And this is not a problem that's going to go away because now not only does Dallas Eakins seem really just in love with that line, but also the Ducks are losing one of their best 5-on-5 players in Josh Manson. So a couple of things, though, a couple of ways that this could be rectified to look at it on the flip side. Ondrej Kase coming back will help the lineup balance up front. And then on the blue line, once Hampus Lindholm returns and hopefully the Ducks, I think we will see a reshuffling on the blue line because it just seems untenable the way this is going. I think that once those things happen, I think that the Ducks will probably settle in a little more nicely, but that fourth line is just a huge, huge drag right now for their numbers.
A couple random thoughts that just came into my head. The first one is Josh Manson. Do you think that one of the reasons, this is going back to our conversation earlier with bringing him up and maybe sending down Guhle, is the fact that they wanted to have someone for that second power play unit? And Josh Mahura, I think Josh Mahura actually came out with the top unit and Fowler was with the second unit. So
but that just seems so tangential.
It does, but
that just seems so marginal compared to the rest of the game.
I know.
And the way that Dallas Eakins is treated as power play units, I don't think he's making decisions like that just for that. True. That just seems unlikely.
Okay.
I mean, maybe that was part of it. I think that you could be right about that, but I don't think that would be the thrust behind that decision. Yep,
just a thought. And then the other thing is, as we were talking about certain lines, kind of about the fourth line just still being horrible. The Silverberg, Raquel, and Henrique line, they just keep churning out goals.
Yeah,
and they're not just
they are very good,
and they're not just churning out goals in a unsustainable way. Granted, as I said, that they are scoring at a bit of a high rate, but they are creating a lot of chances while doing it. It's not as if they're getting one or two chances and scoring on them each night. They're getting a significant amount of shots, significant amount of chances, and so it's very good to see that pairing or that trio having the success that they are and getting rewarded for all the chances that they are getting. And I still go back to why were Raquel and Silverberg not put together earlier?
Well, because Silverberg was a defensive forward and he had to be with Andrew Cogliano and Ryan Getzlaf because they were a preeminent shutdown line in the NHL for all 3 years that they were together.
Yep.
All 4 years.
Yep. It's
yeah.
almost as if boxing players into specific corners isn't the best thing to do.
Yeah, no. Okay, any closing thoughts on this game as a whole, or do you want to dive in some questions?
Nope. It was an exciting game. The Jets defense is not very good. I think that we'll see how they do up against the Canucks defense that I think is a fair amount better because they have Alex Edler. They've got...
Wait, did you say the Canucks are going to be fairly better?
Yeah, I think the Canucks defense is going to be significantly better actually than the Jets defense.
Wow.
Do you disagree there?
I mean, no, I'm not just disagreeing with you. I just hearing that
it's weird.
Kind of hearing the Canucks getting compared to anyone favorably.
For as much as the Tyler Myers contract is horrible, he's a good defenseman. He'd be one of the best defensemen on the Jets.
Well, funny you should say that, considering that's the team that didn't re-sign him.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the NHL is in a weird place right now, and I'm not really comfortable with where it's going. You know what I'm referring to here. The Arizona Coyotes being one of the 3 best 5-on-5 teams in the league and climbing up the standings.
They're good.
Doesn't make me feel good. Doesn't make me feel good as a prognosticator.
Weren't you the one that said they weren't going to make the playoffs? And then I was.
There's still plenty of time for Antti Raanta to get hurt again.
Wait, who's starting majority of the games for them? Is it Raanta or is it Kemper?
Kemper. Yeah. Well, they might be splitting it down the middle. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not feeling great about that.
Real quick, Lewis brings up, what do you think of the Yossi contract?
What do you think about it?
The term's awful.
It's the classic. I think that here's
the
what
money.
I'll say
the
about
money's
it.
Fine. The money's fine.
The money is not prohibitive, which could help down the line. I think that the problem if you're the Nashville Predators is that, and I know this is kind of a fallacy, but you can't just not bring back Roman Josi. If you don't bring him back, you're losing potentially your best defenseman, I think arguably your best defenseman, and you're severely impacting this massive commitment that you've made to being good now. That's I think the supporting argument is that they kind of need Roman Josi to be what they envision they're going to be right now. Roman Josi was always going to get terms. So it's almost like a necessary evil. You know, if you're really good and the Predators are certainly showing that they have the capability to be that this year, you're going to have to invest. You're going to have to pay a price at some point. And for now, it'll be fine for now. I agree with you, though. Of course, you would rather get him on a 3-year term. I mean, that's, of course, what you would prefer, but that's not the world we live in.
So let me ask you this, a brief philosophical question about contracts.
Uh-oh.
Both if you're a manager and from a player.
Mm-hmm.
If, let's say, instead of, 7 times 9 is what he got?
Yeah.
Or was it 8?
8, sorry.
Yeah. So instead of 8 times 9, if you were offered 5 years at 12 or 13 mil, would you do that from the management side or the player side? Either side, would you do that?
I would do that on the manager side, of course, because you get to pay a little more upfront, but you're not tied down. But as a player, you got to think about it. You're turning 30. Roman Josi's 29. I don't know if he has kids. I don't really have like a tracker for that for NHL players, but you're at the point in your life where everyone, you know, when you reach the age of 30, typically, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but that's about the age where you want to settle down, you want to buy the house, you want to have a family. You know, you want to do all of those things, and that desire is not non-existent for people just because they play professional sports. And so as a player, I would not want a shorter term because I want to know where I'm going to be for the next substantial amount of time.
What if the money's the exact same?
If the money is the exact same on a shorter term contract.
As in the total value. If they're willing to pay the same exact amount.
I still think that as a player, you want security. I'm not telling you that this is what I personally think.
No, I know.
But and it's not like the NFL where if you break your leg tomorrow, you can get cut or whatever. NHL players have a lot more security.
Yep.
But the thing is, not only is there the mental security of being locked in after having been underpaid all those years, but also it's almost like a status thing. It's almost like, hey, I am one of the guys now. I am not going anywhere. Like, there's a very powerful element to that, which teams, if they had their way, would not, like, teams don't want to give these contracts. It's not as if the Nashville Predators want to give a guy 9 years. I mean, I would assume that they don't want to give a guy 9 years when they know that 5 years from now, it's not going to be a great deal. This is an agent player driven contract. And the players kind of have the team over a barrel, because at the end of the day, the player can just walk away, right? And then the team has to go find someone else. The player's going to find a team no matter what. The team doesn't have a Roman Josi sitting out there to replace him with. So that's kind of just, I mean, again, not saying all these things are necessarily rational or logical, but that's the world we're living in.
I think if the money is exactly the same, as in, let's say he's getting $72 million.
You're getting $72 million in 3 years.
Well, no, I'm saying 5 as compared to 8.
So you're getting $72 million in 5 years.
Yes, as compared to 72 over 8. I think.
If I were a GM, I would be driving that hard. Yeah. Like as you would as well. But I think as a player,
really, even if it's the same amount of money.
Here's the thing. There's a psychology element to this as well. When you're negotiating and you're clearly losing in one category, even if it makes sense, the player is going to feel like he's getting the short end of the stick, or he's getting a shorter stick, right? Even if logically it doesn't make sense. And so I think that as a manager, it's very hard to overcome that. It's very, very hard to overcome.
I don't know if, honestly, I think that's more something that a manager would say no to doing, simply because of the
also there's more risk. There's still risk on the front end.
Well, and you have the higher cap hit, so in a salary cap world.
Exactly. So as a team, it also doesn't really make sense to go that route, because the Predators are in the interest of they're in the business of being really good right now.
Yeah.
And if they're paying Roman Josi $4 extra million, well, that's a couple depth pieces potentially. So I mean, arguments to be made on both sides. I'm not saying one is right or wrong.
It's an interesting conversation.
Yep.
So it is time for questions from our Twitch chat. So, for those of you out there that are watching the recorded version of this on YouTube, and yes, we do put the video on YouTube. It's basically a recording of what we do on Twitch. It's a really good time. But if you want to like and subscribe to the channel on there, it really just helps out significantly. If you want to comment there as a way to reach out to us, I can take a look at all the comments there, reply, everything like that. It's a really good time over there. But we also have this, obviously, on all the audio, different formats like Spotify, like Apple Podcasts. But the real bread and butter for our show is that we do a Twitch stream for every single podcast, and it's a really, really fun time. It's a way that you can support the show. If you have Amazon Prime, you have Twitch Prime, and you get one free Twitch Prime sub each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days, whether that is by pushing on Felix's face if you're on the iOS app, or clicking the subscribe button above Felix's head. And he got it right this time. Good work. And with that, you'll get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name, and when we are having a crazy night, we will prioritize your questions. So, let me start with this real quick. D. Frenzy asked, are you both going to grow your beards back for No Shave November?
Jake, you've never had a beard as long as I've known you.
I'm on the once a week shaving, seeing as my wife does like me clean shaven. So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm down. If we want to put together a team and do the whole Movember movement thing, let us know. Reach out if you'd be down to do it with us, and we'll see how it goes. You want to do it?
Yeah, if that's what the people want, then we'll do it.
Yeah. All right. So we have this question from Tony, who's our resident Jacob Silverberg lover, and Nick Ritchie hater. Says, since Nick Ritchie has those borderline fraudulent, because he was trying to dive into Nick Ritchie's numbers and say that some of the underlying numbers weren't being caused by him. I'll say this on that real quick. I briefly saw what you had said, Tony. The one thing that I've got on that is that he has had these numbers over the course of his career, regardless of who he's played with. And so that means that he's doing something right, and he's played with a lot of different type of players. So I'm willing to buy into those and believe that he is a significant portion of that. But so he's wondering, do you think that they can trade, or that the Ducks can trade Nick Ritchie for someone good or projected to be good? I don't think his ceiling is much higher than what he is now. Do you think Nick Ritchie has a lot of trade value right now?
No.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at also, which is why you don't.
What are you gonna get for him? Like a 3rd round pick?
I don't.
How badly do you want this 3rd round pick?
Yeah, I don't think. Even though, here's the thing, we look at these numbers, we understand what they're saying, what to look for in them, but that doesn't necessarily mean all NHL GMs do also. And that doesn't necessarily mean either that those numbers have basically show what the trade value is. I mean, Erik Goodbranson has been one of the worst defensemen in the league in terms of these metrics over the last couple of years. And he just got moved with his horrible contract. So that kind of shows you that these numbers don't really play a part in trade value.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he drives play in a third-line role. I mean, he is what he is. It's fine.
And I think that's where you and I both are on it. He's not going to be this amazing player that's going to take over games and win you games throughout the entire season, but he's the type of player that you need to win games, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, we've got this question from Lewis. Said, do you think number 4 will be hung in the rafters one day? And would you be okay if it is?
Jake?
So, I am one of the biggest Cam Fowler fans out there.
You have a jersey.
I do have a jersey. I've been a long defender of him, and said that a lot of it has been his partners. I don't believe that his number should go in the rafters. I would not hate it if it did.
What if the Ducks won a cup with Cam Fowler?
I still personally don't, unless he's here for another 5 years. Unless he's
What if Cam Fowler gets a Norris and a cup?
Yes, then yes. No, but
okay.
There's a lot of things that could happen.
You're not fundamentally against him going up. It's that he doesn't have a case.
No, he doesn't have a case as of right now. Yeah. Now, if you add 5 years to it plus maybe a cup, sure.
What if the Ducks make the Western Conference Final 2 times out of the next 5 years?
If he's one of the driving forces behind that, then yes, especially when you add in the longevity. I think what Cam Fowler has going for him in that regards is longevity, because you factor in games played, all these different things. There's an outside chance where he may catch Getzlaf and Perry for games played in a Ducks uniform if he stays with the team throughout the entirety of this contract.
Also, when is Getzlaf hitting 1,000? That must be. Did that already happen? 1,000 games played, or it must be one of the next 2 games. Here, continue. I'll look it up.
Okay. So I think that I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't think as of right now. I don't think he's on track for that to happen. I think is the best way to put it.
A lot needs to happen, and there's not that much time left to do it. And also, Getzlaf is 2 games away from 1,000. All right,
it is upcoming. Yeah. Corey Perry's should be coming up also.
Yeah, won't happen as a Duck.
If he wasn't hurt, his 1,000th game was supposed to come against the Ducks. In that game,
as a Duck.
So thanks for driving that in. I actually am excited for that first game back because. You know that there's going to be a video for Corey Perry. You know there's going to be something for his thought because of him playing 1,000 games. There's going to be a lot that night. It's going to be weird also. But
Stevie D asked, what if Fowler grows a beautiful beard? I can't even imagine. And would you put him in the rafters? I can't even imagine Cam Fowler with a beard. I don't think he's ever had facial hair in his career.
In the playoff, yeah, his beard is Perry-esque.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
All right. Random question from STFU. Shane said, if you had to create a roster from scratch of everyone in the NHL, would anyone from the Ducks be on there?
Well, okay.
Yes,
so is this
John Gibson?
I was actually going to say Hampus Lindholm.
Okay, Hampus Lindholm and John Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, they would be in the running. Those would probably be the 2.
John Gibson is my starter.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know about that.
Wow.
I mean, I would have to take a look. But yeah, I mean, he and Lindholm would probably be the guys that would make an all NHL team. Or at least if I were building a team. Outside of that, though, in terms of the forwards, probably, I mean, maybe Rickard Rakell. Yeah, maybe Raquel or Silverberg. I mean, it really just depends. If there's are we building a team with the salary cap? What are we doing here? So, I would need a little more information on how we're building this team.
All right. So, Coldfire 725 asked the question: when do you think Sherwood gets another shot in the lineup? I really don't know if we're gonna see him called up.
Well, maybe Dallas Eakins will come out and say, "Well, we have a plan for Carter Rowney, and we want him to get his legs under him, and." By the way, here's Kiefer Sherwood. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think Kiefer Sherwood's going to be up with the Ducks that much this season because of the fact that in 10 games, he loses his waiver exemption.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he's going to be an AHLer this year.
Let me ask you this. Will Daniel Sprong or Kiefer Sherwood play more than 0 games in the AHL this year?
NHL, you mean?
That's what I said, NHL.
I heard AHL, sorry.
Oh,
yeah. I think it's more likely that Daniel Sprong does.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I actually think Kiefer Sherwood is way more likely.
I'm going Daniel Sprong. I think
it's possible that neither of them play in the NHL this year, because I kind of get this sneaking suspicion, very sneaking. So it could be totally wrong. Kevin Dineen is kind of an old school coach, and I don't really know where Daniel Sprong fits into that. And I'm wondering what kind of intel is being shared between the AHL staff and the NHL front office. I'm just wondering that. Just wondering.
Yeah. We both thought one of them was going to be called up with Kase going out, and instead they put Max Comtois on right wing. So who knows?
Yeah.
They are pretty much set on having Comtois up as compared to one of those two. So that throws a wrench in it.
I think someone asked us last game, or maybe someone tweeted me this, but what do we make of Max Jones so far this season?
He's been fine. I don't think
he's settling in as kind of a middle six player who can kind of play up and down the lineup. Has not scored yet, I don't think, or he has one. I'm so bad at remembering.
He doesn't have a goal. He doesn't have a goal. Yeah,
he hasn't scored, and he hasn't come all that close. Yeah, I mean, I think he's been fine. I think that we're kind of learning. Maybe he eventually develops into like a 20-goal guy, but he seems like he's going to be a good depth player in his career. Right now, he has 6 points in 41 games in the NHL.
This may piss some people off.
Uh-oh.
He's basically just going to be what Nick Ritchie is.
I think he has the
maybe a
potential
little
to
bit,
be
maybe a little bit higher.
Well, I think he has the potential to be a little better offensively. I don't really have a case though, because he has 2 goals in 41 games.
Yeah,
but I think that the numbers are they're a bit underselling how good he can be offensively.
Yeah, but I think if he ends up where Nick Ritchie is at right now, I think that probably would be about right with how I project him.
I don't really know what it is with Max Jones, because you watch him play and he looks like he does all of these things that you would think, oh, this guy has, he's got hands, he's a shifty skater, he's very fun to watch.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to translate offensively. Now, he's only got 19 shots in 11 games, so he doesn't really shoot the puck a whole lot. Maybe that would be an area of improvement for him. I don't know. He's only 21. There's still about a couple more years before we really know for sure.
Yeah. The final thing I did want to talk about, I'm trying to find the question very quickly. Where is it? Bob Shockey.
Sprongwood. I like that.
Bob Shockey Setagiv asked us, is Aiken's strategy to just let Getz be Getz, or has he made Getzlaf shoot more? And so kind of piggybacking off of that, Ryan Getzlaf has 6 goals in 14 games.
Yeah, I think that we may have talked about that before recording, maybe yesterday, but he's scoring at a good rate. He had 14 goals all of last season, and he's already at 6.
And
where do you think he ends up?
Well, and he's shooting at 17%, which is higher than his average, but that's still not an astronomical amount to have 6 goals right now. And so
do you think he gets to 20?
Yeah. So right now he's on pace for, let me just do the quick math. He's on pace for a 35-goal season.
Yeah, I think that seems. What's his career high?
Probably 30, maybe.
Probably 30.
No,
well, let's see here.
31 in the 13-14 season.
So, are we expecting a career high goal scoring season at age 34? I mean, it'd be a good story.
I think he ends up at 25-ish.
Don't get me wrong, but yeah. Well, let's see here. Let's this is where numbers are helpful, right?
Yeah.
We can predict if this can continue or not. So right now, his individual expected goals for per 60 minutes. This is at 5-on-5. this is a calculation of how many goals we can expect a guy to score in 60 minutes based on the types of shots he's getting, and also there's some accounting for quantity as well. It's what we can expected goals. In the last 5 seasons, Ryan Getzlaf has been very consistent in this regard. 0.44, 0.43, 0.41, 0.43 again. This season, you know where he's at?
0.6?
0.47. He's exactly in line with where he's been the last 5 years. His individual shot attempts per 60, they've actually gone down slightly this year from last year. His individual scoring chances, though, have gone up. He was at 5.2 last year, and he's at 7.3 this year. So I would say he's probably going to finish around 20 to 25, which would be a massive improvement from last year. But I'm calling a bit more smoke and mirrors here than him actually being this revamped shooter or whatever.
I'm going to go the opposite way because I think...
Jake, you realize you're doing the opposite of what we tell people they should do.
Well, no. And I'll explain why I'm going the opposite way of you.
Okay,
I think that the reason why is you look at his shooting percentage over the last couple of years, and yes, his individual expected goals is on pace for where it's been the last couple seasons.
The last 5 seasons.
Yes.
This isn't a new trend.
No, it's not. But my point there is that he's probably shooting a bit lower the last couple of years than he probably would be. I mean, 2 years ago, he was shooting at 9.4%. 4 years ago at 7.3%. The last couple of years, right around 10. It wouldn't shock me if that saw a spike up, which we're seeing right now being at 17%. If that realistically settles into 13, 14%, he could be in the 20-goal range. So
yeah, I mean, sure, we're banking on things that haven't happened for a while to happen.
No.
So it's a bit of a barrier here for me.
Fair. I'm not necessarily disagreeing, but I think he's better than a 10% shooter in this league.
He hasn't been above he hasn't hit 11% shooting percentage, so he's been at about 10. Well, I'll just read you the last 5 seasons of Ryan Getzlaf's shooting. So this is going back to 2014-15. 13.1, 7.3, 10.9, 9.4, 10.5, and he's at 17.1 right now. Which one of these 5 seems to be the outlier?
Yeah, no, I think the 17.1 is high, but I think it could stay.
It's extremely high. It's very high.
The other thing of note, though, in this situation, look at power play goals.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely arguments to be made that he can exceed, like that he can still get a good number of goals, but just based off what I've seen so far, based off of like the underlying numbers, I would bet hard against it.
Here's the thing. So that the numbers you had said for individual expected goals, that's all at 5-on-5, which is great, and we've had that little debate right now. But when you look at power play, he has more power play goals this season than he did all of last year.
Yeah, I mean, there's your argument. There's your argument that the power play will prop it up. We have no way of knowing if this power play can keep this up. That's kind of another issue. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It's just, it would be on the outer edge of the distribution curve of probabilities. But we'll see, though. I mean, the thing that's kind of putting a wrench in all this is the Sam Steele component. You know, if Sam Steele can continue to be this really good playmaker from that right face-off circle with Getzlaf, hey, maybe that does add the 5 to 10 goals.
And I think that may be where the spike in shooting percentage is coming, because you'll get higher chance looks that have a higher chance or high probability of going in.
We also have no idea if Ryan Getzlaf can actually finish those consistently,
which
is another issue.
True.
But yeah. Anyway, I'm forgetting what the question even was, but there's a little. It was about if
Getzlaf has been told to shoot more this year.
No, I just don't think there's any evidence for that. But I'm sure they've told him that.
Yeah,
but there's no manifestation.
I think every coach has told him that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, maybe if everyone ever has told him to shoot more and it hasn't led to a different outcome, maybe that's not the way to do it. Just, I don't know. Maybe the thought there. Okay, we're well over an hour. We should probably wrap up. Any final things you wanted to talk about?
Nope, but we do have a new Apple Podcast review, so let me get that open really quickly so we can give credit to the very nice person that gave us a very nice review for the show. So I have that open right now. So Good Time This came in on Sunday from L-Train. Said, so I grew up following the Ducks as a kid when Disney owned them. I was interested in following them again, but didn't know where to because I don't live in California. I stumbled on Anaheim Calling. They're great and fun and super informative. They know more about hockey than I ever could, but they make it accessible and easy to listen to. So thank you so much. That's exactly what we're hoping to do here, and hoping to have some fun with it with Felix's Derek Grant analogy today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for listening. Couple different ways that you can support the show. So by the time you're listening to this, our Patreon drive will be pretty much over. A big thank you to everyone, though, who either became a new patron this month over at patreon.com/acpod or who upped their monthly donation. We are going to do something. We didn't really manage to hit any of the goals we had laid out. But, hey, part of the reason you lay out goals isn't necessarily to hit them, but it's just to move forward, to
and they
grow
will still
from
be,
where you were.
They will still be there as we move forward.
They will still be there in the spirit, though, of time and the fact that we've been kind of drilling this home for the month. I'm going to give everyone a little break off of the spiel with the goals. I will say, though, definitely go visit patreon.com/acpod. For $5 a month, monthly donation, you get 2 bonus episodes a month.
Yeah.
And for $1 a month, you get access to a patrons-only Discord chat, which is a lot of fun.
What was our most recent Patreon episode? I'm already spacing on what we talked
about. Our most recent Patreon episode. So just to give you an idea, this is actually a good idea. We should probably say what those actually look like. So we did a Patreon episode on the 26th. So that was this past Saturday. And we did a very early quick reaction to the Eric Branson trade. We did a full breakdown of that. And our patrons actually got access to that well before, at least a day before our regular listeners did. And the nice thing about the Patreon episodes, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but we record them on weekends, so we're usually a little more laid back. We're not recording them at 12 a.m. at night, and so we tend to go more in depth. We have more time to really flesh out the topics, and so which is kind of sounds a little weird considering we do hour-long episodes regardless during the week, but they do have a different vibe to them. They have a different cadence. I think that they're a nice kind of break from how we usually record. And I think that if you enjoy our show for what it is now, especially if you enjoy the kind of more analytical side and also just the fun side, then those areas of our show they're amplified. Basically tenfold.
They're amplified.
They're amplified, yeah. And they're a lot. I mean, we talked about wrestling. Or no, we did NHL mascots.
We did talk about wrestling also. Don't you bury that lead.
Oh, God, that hurts my mind just to think about. But yeah, so that's at patreon.com/acpod. If you don't want to put any money on this, more power to you. Money's tight these days. Just go leave us an Apple Podcast review. Helps a ton. Helps the show climb up the rankings. There are more and more Ducks podcasts by the day. So we gotta, we gotta stay in the mix.
Real quick side topic thing right here that I want to say as a recommendation for everyone. Go see Jojo Rabbit. I saw it this week. One of my favorite movies of all time. Sorry, had to get that out there. I was talking to Bonnie about it, and it made me remember it. So go see that movie.
Yeah, make sure to check us out on Spotify and Stitcher. And, of course, check out AnaheimCalling.com, at Anaheim Calling on Twitter. Jake is on Twitter, at ReindeerGames91. He is on there tweeting about wrestling. I'm on there, at Felix_Sicard, tweeting about hockey. So make your decision accordingly.
How many times have you actually seen me tweet about wrestling?
It's always like late at night on the weekday, just like OMG, Undertaker or something. Like, I don't know. So yeah, check it out. It's a lot of fun. We're going to be back recording probably the Ducks have a game Friday night. Yeah. We're working on a schedule for that. We're working on maybe a new weekend schedule when the Ducks have 2 and 3 or 2 and 2. We'll figure it out, but we will talk to you this weekend. Happy Halloween. By the time you're listening to this, it's going to be Halloween.
Spooky season.
Don't just accept candy from strangers unless it's a verified candy distributor. So make sure that you're being safe. I don't really know how to follow that up, but just stay spooky. That's all I've got to say. We'll talk to you at the next pod.
Bye.